Hello everyone, I'm attorney and professor Kirk J, and I want to welcome you to this, our 7th mini lecture in issues involving employment law. Tonight we're going to talk about pregnancy and lactation discrimination. Before we talk about our topic, I do want to point out to you that this is meant to be educational in nature only and is not meant to be legal advice. If you're facing a serious legal issue at work, I encourage you to contact an attorney in your jurisdiction. So we're talking tonight about those issues that are going to affect mothers primarily: pregnancy discrimination and lactation discrimination or lactation issues. There are two separate laws that cover each of those. The first law is the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act is an amendment to Title VII, and it basically states that an employer is not allowed to discriminate against a pregnant employee. So an employer may not take an action against a pregnant employee simply because that employee is pregnant. It's very important to point out, though, that the Pregnancy Discrimination Act does not include any affirmative provisions. That means that an employer is not required to provide pregnant women with any greater benefits than they provide everybody else. So, for example, you're not allowed to terminate a pregnant employee simply because she is pregnant. However, if she's violated a rule that's applicable to everybody else, then there's nothing unlawful about terminating her. Additionally, you are not required under the Pregnancy Discrimination Act to provide any type of accommodation for the employee. So, for example, if you have a policy that employees must show up on time, you have a pregnant woman who has morning sickness and that causes her to come into work late, you are not required to modify your policy to allow her to come in late. You are required, however, to provide her with the same benefits that you provide to everyone else. That would mean that if you allow other employees who are not pregnant to come in late for certain other types of health conditions, then you couldn't treat her differently simply because she is pregnant. Additionally, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act does not require an employer to provide a pregnant employee with maternity leave. That is not required as part of the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. An employer is only required to allow that pregnant employee to have the same leave or the same leave benefits as it allows any other employee who is facing a health condition. Now, let's talk about lactation issues. For the most part, lactation discrimination or lactation access issues are fairly new in the law. In fact, the first kind of generally applicable lactation law that we had was passed as part of the Patient Protection and Affordable Act, sometimes known as Obamacare. And basically, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act amended a section of the Fair Labor Standards Act and provides mothers with a reasonable break time to express breast milk for their nursing child for up to 1 year after the child's birth. Now, if a mother is expressing breast milk at work, they are allowed to take whatever breaks are needed to express that breast milk at work. Additionally, the employer is required to provide the mother who is expressing breast milk with some area that is reasonably shielded from intrusion from coworkers and the public, and specifically under the law, that is not a bathroom. So an employer has to provide some place other than a bathroom for the employee to express breast milk. Important to remember that this law is generally applicable under the same terms as the Fair Labor Standards Act. However, there is a provision that says that smaller employers, those with 50 or fewer employees, may not be subject to the Act if providing this break time would pose an undue hardship. To determine whether or not there's an undue hardship, we would need to look at the expense or difficulty of compliance for the employer, depending on their size, their financial resources, their nature, and their structure. But in general, the employers are going to be required to provide nursing mothers with that opportunity to express breast milk at work. Again, I'm attorney and Professor Kirk Angel. Thank you.